Hi guys, and welcome to Katie's Insight, where I give my insight on all kinds of things, including news, business, finance, politics, and most importantly right now, stimulus and the election. So I have election updates, and these are huge. These are pretty big bombshells that I think are pretty interesting that we should start throwing out there. We're starting to see some of these pieces crumble, and it makes me happy because I just want government corruption on both sides to be done. And if you think it's just on the Democrat side, trust me, we're going to start to see it leak out about the Republicans. So what are we talking about today? A couple things. First of all, the DOJ has officially now doing an investigation. AG Barr is doing an investigation into the elections. People are resigning, and something really funny happened. In fact, something I was the only person that I knew on this platform really talking about brought up. I'm gonna go with the funny one first, just because y'all know me. I love a good giggle. And before I begin, guys, I'm giving away $100 gift cards in these videos. So to be eligible, this is all you have to do. Very simple. Like the video, subscribe, hit notifications, comment, share the content. Boom, you're entered, you're eligible. That's all you have to do. Do it for every video you see, and the more times you comment, the more times you share, the more chances you have of winning. If you leave 100 comments, that's 100 times more chances to win a gift card. So please make sure and do all of that. I love giving you guys money, and it helps me grow the channel. The more the channel grows, the more gift cards I can give you. So yay, good luck with all of that. Find me on Facebook, Katie's Insight, like the page, join the group. Katie's Corner will be changed to Katie's Insight soon. And I will be, and we talk about stimulus, politics, elections, and everything, and we all try to help each other. And I would love to see you there. Okay, on with the show. So in regards to the election, the possible mail fraud, voter fraud, and everything that we know that's going on with that, this is something that I was saying in the beginning. I was like, aside from everything else, this is kind of more of just a hypocritical nitpicking that I do, because it seems like, you know, the Republicans, like here's how the media spins things, their playbook. Everything Republicans do is bad, horrible, the R word, irresponsible, but the Democrats can turn around and do it and it's completely fine. Just like Nancy Pelosi going and get that blowout without her mask when she makes all the businesses shut down and doesn't even apologize, says, well, I'm just sorry I trusted the wrong person. It's kind of the same concept, right? You know, she's all about, oh, the Democrats, we care about people, we're so morally superior, and she lets how many people in her state go homeless. It's that hypocrisy a lot of people like me look at, and we don't want to get behind, but this is really funny. This is an article. It says, Kayleigh McEnany calls celebrations for Joe Biden's super spreader events. Yes, girl. This is what was driving me nuts. If you guys follow my content, I was saying, aren't there all-day celebrations on the street right now, and the media's hyping it up like it's this wonderful thing because Joe Biden won? But didn't we not have in-person elections because it's too dangerous because of the virus? But they're cheering on people who are going outside shoulder to shoulder, singing, crying, and hugging. By the way, I'm not trying to make a statement about the virus when I say that. I'm saying the hypocrisy of it all. Nobody in the media is going, oh, it's a super spreader event. Why? And again, guys, I'm not left, I'm not right. I'm pro common sense, and I'm looking at this going, this doesn't make sense. But of course, I'm going to get tons of comments and a barrage of people just saying, shut up, hey, what? My person won and you need to get over it. Well, Trump's not my person. Now, the behavior from the Democrats makes me start to lean more towards Trump. This is what I've been saying about people in the middle like me. We're anti-BS, and we don't like the BS that's going on. But I just thought this was great because nobody else was saying this. Remember, Trump goes and just waves from his closed vehicle, most irresponsible thing on the planet. Look, and I even said back then, this is not a good look for him. Because they're going to take this and spread this, even if he's in an enclosed car. But it's totally okay to have maybe tens of thousands or hundred thousands of people packed together celebrating Joe Biden and nobody says the word. You see the hypocrisy? So it says White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany ripped the celebration that occurred after news spread of President-elect Joe Biden's victory, calling them super spreader events and asking Biden to denounce them. Well, she should. Again, just common sense of the situation. Shortly after major news networks projected that Biden would win, backers of the Democrats took to the streets around the United States in celebration, honking horns, popping champagne, and gathering at landmarks, including the White House. However, the gatherings came on a day where 126,742 new virus cases were recorded in the U.S., third day in a row. total exceeding 120,000 according to data from Johns Hopkins. I'm not laughing because people have the virus. I'm laughing at the insanity. I feel like this goes to show you on all sides, no matter if it's conservative or liberal leaning. Guys, the media is lying to us nonstop. How is one okay and the other isn't? Many who gathered at the various events appear to have worn face masks, but were not social distancing. Well, of course, because when you're a Democrat, you can do what you want, says the media. I'm not talking about you find people that lean one way or another. I'm literally just simply referring to the people at the top and the narratives they speak. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention recommends people keep at least 6 feet apart from those whom they do not live with when outside their homes. The mask is not a substitute for social distancing, the CDC says on its website. Where is Joe Biden calling them out on this massive super spreader event held in his name to end? McEnany tweeted, sharing a video of the massive crowd that had gathered outside the White House in BLM Plaza North in support of Biden. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris tweeted Sunday, virus is still here. Please continue to wear masks and practice social distancing. Well, at least one of them has some sort of social accountability in this situation. While it's unknown whether the gathering Saturday will lead to an uptick in the virus cases as the U.S. is already facing another surge, BLM protests in many cities around the country earlier this summer do not appear to have been linked to virus surges. Well, magically, guys, those aren't super spreader events. I wonder how that works. That was another thing. I was like, so we have to just quarantine and go in and out of places as quick as we can with all our PPE, but the media encourages the protesting and some of the protests that turn not nice. Please infer so YouTube doesn't get upset with me. This is the stuff that's been really bothering me, guys. The CDC and other public health officials have said wearing a mask and social distancing are two of the main ways to stop the spread of the virus. But if social distancing is not kept, being outside rather than inside is generally safe. I love it. Instead of everybody should stay inside as much as possible, well, if you have to choose one. Why do they keep lying to us? Why? Why do we keep getting lied to, guys? However, if the celebrations were to lead to a spike in cases, they wouldn't be the first super spreader event in Washington. Now here we go, flipping on Trump. At the event in the Rose Garden to announce the nomination of then Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, more than 200 people, most not wearing face coverings, gathered and sat inches apart. Videos and photos showed Republican senators and White House officials not keeping 6 feet of distance and also gathering inside while unmasked. And remember, guys, how I talked to you guys about the 3 executive orders, and the things that Joe Biden's going to push immediately in the White House. Oh, of course it's not stimulus. Why would it be to help the American people? But the biggest one is to go after the virus. You want to go after the virus, Joe, while you're completely silent about these huge super spreader events in your name, and you're encouraging them. Because that doesn't reek of crap. McEnany at least a dozen more linked to the event. And now they're talking about how McEnany and other people, about a dozen more people linked to that Rose Garden event, tested positive for the virus in the days that followed, and thousands more people may have been exposed, a USA Today investigation found. Well, they could have gotten it from anywhere. Sure, they could have gotten it there. It's just, again, it's interesting to watch how it now all goes back on Trump. They kind of glossed over the fact of what's happening with Biden, but Trump and Orange Man bad. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, called the Rose Garden event a super spreader, saying the data speak for themselves. Where's Fauci on Biden's super spreader events? Anybody? Fauci. Anybody hear from Fauci? Sound off in the comments. Trump has also faced criticism from many Democrats while campaigning for holding large rallies where many of his supporters were not wearing masks or social distancing. Welcome to America politics, where all of the hypocrisy and all of the corruption, thank God, is finally getting exposed. So there you go, guys. Now I want to go into election news because I think this is interesting. And by the way, this is from Business Insider, and I'm going to giggle a little bit because of the headline. It says Attorney General William Barr authorizes election investigation despite lack of evidence before states have certified results. Y'all have seen my videos on how much evidence is there. If it didn't already come out, it will be, so look for it. I have a video coming out of as most of the comprehensive stuff as we know up to date with all of the evidence, despite lack of evidence. They could not be more transparent, guys. So let's take a look. It says, Attorney General William Barr has authorized federal prosecutors to investigate any substantial allegations of election-related fraud, the Associated Press reported Monday, despite little evidence of such fraud. But Barr said the memo itself didn't include any evidence of voting irregularities impacting the outcome of any election, according to the Wall Street Journal. Barr's sign-off on investigations before states have certified their results also contradict existing DOJ policies meant to keep the agency from improperly swaying the election. Election law expert Rick Hansen told Business Insider that he's concerned Barr might be meddling in the electoral process for political reasons, given his history of making unsupported claims about election fraud. Yeah, all that evidence doesn't matter. Screw everybody that has evidence. Following Barr's memo, which comes as Trump continues to make baseless claims while refusing to concede the election because the media doesn't call elections, guys, and because there are actual claims. The DOJ top election crimes investigator stepped down from his current role, the New York Times reported. Let's dive in. Attorney General William Barr sent a memo to federal prosecutors authorizing them to investigate substantial allegations of potential election fraud before states have certified the results, the AP reported Monday. So far, there's been little evidence of such irregularities. Voter fraud, including fraud with mail ballots, is extremely rare due to the decentralized nature of the U.S.'s election system and states' various measures to verify the authenticity of ballots and detect and prevent fraud. And independent observers have said they have no evidence such fraud occurred in this year's election. Well, interesting, because a lot of independent observers who were supposed to be there to watch were kicked out or weren't allowed to watch. And the people in the facilities doing the vote counting were wearing pro-Biden stuff, which is also against the rules. Barr told U.S. Attorney in a memo, according to the AP, that they could open probes if there are clear and apparent credible allegations of irregularities that, if true, could potentially impact the outcome of a federal election in an individual state. Secretaries of state from both parties, including the battleground states such as Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, have consistently asserted that the voting processes were fair and that they have not discovered evidence of election fraud. The Department of Justice did not respond to a request for comment on the story. And just hours after Barr sent the memo, the DOJ stopped top voting fraud investigator James Pilger, resigned from his role and moved to a different department, the New York Times reported Monday evening. There's no claims of this, but the top voting fraud investigator has resigned. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. Don't look behind the curtain. Having familiarized myself with the new policy and its ramifications, Pilger told colleagues in an email, according to the New York Times, I must regretfully resign from my role as director of the Elections Crimes Branch. Barr's memo comes as President Donald Trump and some top Republicans continue to make evidence less claims about widespread voting fraud, while Trump has refused to concede the race after losing to President-elect Joe Biden, because the media is not the one to call it and there's too much outstanding. Barr's decision to authorize the investigations before states have certified their vote tallies also contradicts longstanding DOJ policy that aims to prevent the agency from improperly swaying or undermining the integrity of the elections. Overt criminal investigative measures should not ordinarily be taken in matters involving alleged fraud in the manner in which votes were cast or counted until an election in question has been concluded, its results certified, and all recounts and election contests conclude. Stated a 2017 DOJ manual on prosecuting election crimes, but obviously this doesn't fall into that because we all have narratives to follow, guys. Such restraint is meant to avoid interjecting the federal government into election campaigns, the voting process, and the education of ensuing recounts and election contest litigation, it stated. Barr said in the memo that the existing policy was passive and delayed enforcement approach and could allow illegal behavior to continue unchecked, the Wall Street Journal reported. However, Barr also said that nothing here should be taken as any indication that the department has concluded that voting irregulation has impacted the outcome of any election, and that specious, speculative, fanciful, or far-fetched claims should not be the basis for initiating federal inquiries, according to the Wall Street Journal. You guys see how this is being spun. All of these claims of voter fraud, they don't really matter. It's just made up. They're fairy tales. But election experts were nonetheless concerned about the timing of the move, particularly coming from Barr. Given the kinds of unsupported claims Barr has made about election fraud before, I'm concerned about his potential meddling in the election process for political reasons. Rick Hansen, an election law and administration expert at the University of California in Irvine, told Business Insider. In the weeks leading up to the election, the DOJ rolled back another decades-old election non-interference policy that would allow prosecutors to launch investigations that may alter the outcome of the election, specifically naming the United States and Postal Service, which Trump has repeatedly targeted. In September, Barr repeated false election fraud claims to CNN's Wolf Blitzer before admitting that he had no evidence to support the claims and was basing his concern on logic. Well, they seem to be taking all this very well and very seriously. I just love that this guy stepped down, but nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. And now, what I'm really happy about is it's been a little bit quiet on the Trump front, and I figured they are just kind of biding their time. They are taking things in, and they are working on the back end, which is what I've been reporting to you guys. They are hiring lawyers across the country to get this looked at. Well, Kayleigh McEnany and Ronna McDaniel did a press conference tearing up this situation and calling it out left, right, and center. I want to play this for you guys. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here today in my personal capacity as an advisor to the campaign. This election is not over. Far from it. We have only begun the process of obtaining an accurate, honest vote count. We are fighting for the rights of all Americans who want to have faith and confidence not only in this election, but in the many elections to come. There is only one party in America that opposes voter ID. One party in America that opposes verifying signatures, citizenship, residency, eligibility. There is only one party in America trying to keep observers out of the count room. And that party, my friends, is the Democrat Party. You don't take these positions because you want an honest election. You don't oppose an audit of the vote because you want an accurate count. You don't oppose our efforts at sunlight and transparency because you have nothing to hide. You take these positions because you are welcoming fraud and you are welcoming illegal voting. Our position is clear. We want to protect the franchise of the American people. We want an honest, accurate, lawful count. We want maximum sunlight. We want maximum transparency. We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be discarded. Unlike our opponents, we have nothing to hide. The integrity of our election matters. The Constitution of the United States matters. What we have seen across the country is Democrat officials systematically trying to do an end run around the Constitution to tip the scales of the election in their favor. As Justice Gorsuch wrote in DNC versus Wisconsin State Legislature, our oath to uphold the Constitution is tested by hard times, not easy ones. Last-minute changes to long-standing election rules risk other problems too, inviting confusion and chaos and eroding public confidence in electoral outcomes. Pennsylvania is a case study in just this. Allow me to just broadly review 3 points that have happened in Pennsylvania. Number one, in Philadelphia, poll watchers who are legally permitted to be there and observe the vote count were blocked from observing the count. Our poll watchers were put behind barricades in a massive room. They were many feet from the counting process, and in fact, when you look at all of the tables, many hundreds of feet, in fact, from the tables in the very back. They were completely in the dark, completely unable to oversee the vote count, as was their legal right. An observer on the scene described it this way. Imagine being on a football field. you're on the 10-yard line and expected to make a call in the end zone on the other side of the field. It is unacceptable. An intermediary court ruled on the side of the campaign, on the side of transparency and allowing the poll watchers to observe the count. But what did the Democrat Pennsylvania Supreme Court do? They issued an administrative stay, effectively pushing back our poll watchers and denying them the access they deserve to sit and watch the count. Ask yourself this: what are Pennsylvania Democrats hiding? Why can't poll watchers simply observe the count? Second, Article 1, Section 4 of the United States Constitution clearly states this: the time, place, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. That's right, the state legislature is constitutionally the one making the decision. But the Supreme Court of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Kathy Boockvar, and the Democrat-tilted Pennsylvania Supreme Court have continually disregarded the Constitution, making decisions clearly in the domain of the Pennsylvania legislator. In fact, maybe there's a reason the Secretary of State, Boockvar, keeps substituting her will for that of the legislature in a completely unconstitutional fashion. Perhaps it's because she has motive. In fact, she has shown her partisan hatred tweeting this: using the title, quote, president before the word, quote, Trump really just means the office of the presidency. We see where her motives stand. And finally, a mere survey of the facts shows that voters in blue counties like Philadelphia County were given certain privileges that voters in red counties were not afforded. The Constitution's Equal Protection Clause requires uniform standards, but Democrat election officials created disparities depending on where citizens lived and where they voted in the state. Some counties set up satellite offices for backdoor early voting, whereas other counties did not. Some counties allowed pre-canvassing, where other counties did not. Voters in some counties were allowed to cure their ballots, whereas voters in other counties were not. What Pennsylvania has done is provide a case study into how to tip the scales of an election to functionally favor the Democrat Party. This has gone on nationwide. And I'll leave you with this. In DNC versus Wisconsin State Legislature, in another attempt to count late ballots that arrived after the election, Justice Gorsuch wrote, "Nothing in our founding document contemplates the kind of judicial intervention that took place here, nor is there precedent for it in 230 years of the court's decisions." He went on to say, "No one doubts that conducting a national election amid a pandemic poses serious challenges. But none of that means individual judges may improvise with their own election rules in place of those the people's representatives have adopted." They have taken a global pandemic and turned it into a nationwide electoral epidemic. They have taken, based on what they call a natural disaster, they have used that and turned this into a national disaster. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt Morgan, General Counsel for the campaign.
Thank you, Kaylee. As Kaylee stated, the election is not over. Tabulation and canvassing continues across the United States. And today in the United States District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, the Donald J. Trump for president and 2 representative voters filed suit against the Secretary of State in select counties, alleging 2 things. Number 1, a violation of equal access based on a lack of meaningful observation and transparency, particularly in Democrat-controlled counties. And secondly, a violation of equal protection based on disparate treatment between Republican voters and Democrat voters. But what does this mean in layman's terms? What does this mean for all of you? What this means is if you are a Democrat in Philadelphia, you are allowed to work outside the bounds of the restrictions on fixing defective ballots, sometimes referred to as curing. But if you're in Republican counties in the state of Pennsylvania, you are not allowed to do that because they're strictly following the text of the statute in Pennsylvania. Secondly, if you are a Republican in the city of Philadelphia, for example, you are not allowed meaningful access to the observation of the vote tabulation process. If you are a Democrat in a Republican-leaning county in the state of Pennsylvania, you were allowed that access to meaningfully view the ballots as they are being counted. There are, in Philadelphia and Allegheny counties, there were over 682,000 ballots that were tabulated outside the view of our observers who are entitled by law to review those ballots. And we believe that a meaningful review of those ballots could discern that there were ballots that were illegally counted. Our relief that we're seeking at this point is to enjoin the Secretary of State from hurrying to certify the results before they were completely tabulated or canvassed so that we can obtain that meaningful review and discern within those 682,000 ballots at least, and there may be more throughout the state, whether or not there was disparate treatment for Republican voters and Democrat voters in the states, and whether Democrat voters were disproportionately allowed to cure or fix their ballots in some locations in the state and not others. And for example, even at a minute level here today, we are very close to the automatic recount statute in Pennsylvania, and this lawsuit itself could change that or swing that small discrepancy. So this is the relief we're seeking at this time, but I would also urge the press and those out there that this is step one of a process. We are within our rights to look into these irregularities. We were in our rights to observe the votes as they are being tabulated. We will observe those, and we believe that this lawsuit takes us one step closer to closing the gap in the vote differential in Pennsylvania. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the Republican chairwoman, Ms. McDaniel.
Thank you all for coming. I'm going to start with some of the irregularities we've seen in the state of Michigan specifically, and then I'll go a little bit broader. But Michigan is my home state, and in the county, Wayne County, Republican poll watchers were denied their legal right to monitor the election and purposely kept in the dark. Both literally and figuratively, poll watchers or election workers blocked windows and padlocked doors. Obviously, that's not going to instill confidence. There are thousands of reports of poll watchers being intimidated and unable to do their job. And as of 4 p.m. this afternoon, 131 affidavits have been completed just in Michigan, with over 2,800 incident reports that have been submitted to us since Election Day. 2 new lawsuits were filed today by people who were working in Detroit, and a whistleblower who has gotten their we have gotten their information to the Eastern District Court of Michigan. As you guys can understand, with 2,800 incident reports, this is a lot to track down. It means we're interviewing these people, we're getting their statements, and we're turning them into affidavits. But that takes a lot of time and effort. And as Matt has mentioned, there's a canvass process and a certification for a reason. But I will just tell you the distress that I'm hearing in my state from people who were at TCF and the way they were treated is deeply alarming. I hope you go and look at this. I hope you look at these affidavits, and I hope you hear from the people that were there who feel like they were denied transparency and saw wrongdoing in Detroit. We should all be alarmed by this, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. In addition to that, we've heard hundreds of instances of election workers who were verbally accosted. They verbally accosted our poll watchers and refusals to let them challenge questionable ballots. Election workers were wearing Biden t-shirts and applauding when our poll watchers were kicked out. Imagine volunteering and going and spending your night because you care so much about the integrity of the election, and then to be kicked out and to be cheered as you are leaving. This does not instill confidence in our democracy, and these are good people. I know most of these people. Of the few ballots that Democrat election workers did allow us to challenge, our observers say those ballots were then moved back into the regular pile after our poll watchers were intimidated and pushed from the process. There is a canvass for a reason. There is a certification process for a reason. And unlike Election Day, we need these processes to be transparent. Already in Detroit, we are hearing incidents, and we will have affidavits to this effect, of people not being able to meaningfully canvass and discrepancies that we're seeing in Detroit specifically. So just after a week after the polls closed, Democrats and the media want to ignore these clear irregularities and rush to call states as one and end the certification and canvass process. We're hearing we need to unite, we need to come together. Well, for the thousands of people who spent time and hours going out to be part of this process, who feel disenfranchised, who don't feel like there was transparency, we can't do that unless we search out all these irregularities. Even one instance of voter fraud should be too many for all of us. We intend to ensure that every lawful voter has their vote counted in accordance with the law, that observers are granted the access they are due under state law, and that any irregularities that have occurred, whether by malicious intent or incompetence are investigated to the fullest extent allowed under the law. We will not give up on this process until every last issue has been uncovered. The RNC has deployed legal teams in multiple states to investigate clear irregularities with voting, counting, and tabulation, and we will work with state and local authorities to ensure that a legal count is conducted in accordance to each state's laws and that every vote is counted. If the shoe were on the other foot, if it were this close the other way, if President Trump was in the lead in all these states, and the media would be screaming, this isn't over, the race isn't over, we need more time to count and make sure it's right. But because it's Biden and a very slight lead, the media demands the race is over and there's nothing to see here. The American people need to have confidence in their elections. There are over 150 Americans who voted in this election, and they deserve to know that their votes were counted accurately. Right now, and I can say this as I'm hearing calls and hearing from people across the country, they do not have confidence that that happened. So I am asking the media, interview these people, talk to these people. Do not just dismiss these allegations out of hand, these irregularities. Go research it, because this is a problem when people are not being able to transparently watch the election counting, which they are legally allowed to do. It creates division in our country. Republican and Democrat should be allowed to observe this process. But in this case, it's Republicans that we're not allowed to. We will continue to fight. President Trump will continue to fight for us, and we'll continue to fight for him. Please go to visit.gop. Please visit gop.com to donate. And if you see signs of voter irregularity, go to 888-503-3526. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions. Yep.
Sounds like, do you know that fraudulent votes were actually cast, or are you simply saying we don't know because we couldn't see it?
Look, what we are asking for here is patience. Rana just mentioned to you the more than, I believe it was 130 affidavits in Michigan alone. We're aware of all the reports of thousands of votes in Nevada that were cast by those who are not eligible. We're hearing these reports. We're seeing them come in. We are vetting them. We are getting affidavits. So right now we would point you to all of that. That information is publicly available. But what we're asking for right now is patience as we explore these equal protection claims, among others.
So let me just add a couple things in this recent lawsuit. One, we do have a whistleblower, which I discussed earlier this week, who was in Detroit as an election worker, not as a Republican poll watcher, who under affidavit says that they were told to backdate ballots, that their supervisor came and they were there on November 4th. Ballots that came in with no date, they were told by the supervisor, backdate the ballots to November 2nd or November 3rd so they will count. So that has been submitted to the to the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Michigan. That is via affidavit. If you look at the recent lawsuit, and Mike Reed can get you the information on this lawsuit, let me just share. An election employee with the City of Detroit working at a polling location for 3 weeks prior to the election. This City of Detroit employee directly observed on a daily basis other City of Detroit election workers and employees coaching voters to vote for Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. This employee witnessed these workers and employees encouraging voters to do straight Democrat ballot, and witnessed these election workers and employees going over to the voting booths with voters in order to watch them vote and coach them who to vote for. During the last 2 weeks, while this same employee was working at the polling location, she was specifically instructed by her supervisors never to ask for a driver's license or any photo ID when a person was trying to vote. And as absentee ballots that existed all absentee ballots that existed were required to be input into the QVF system by 9 p.m. on November 3rd, 2020. This was required to be done in order to have a final list of absentee voters who returned their ballots prior to 8 p.m. on November 3rd, 2020. In order to have enough time to process the absentee ballots, all polling locations were instructed to collect the absentee ballots from the drop box once every hour on November 3rd. On November 4th, 2020, a City of Detroit election worker was instructed to improperly predate the absentee ballots received date and that were not in the QVF. She was told to alter the information in the QVF to falsely show that the absentee ballots had been received in time to be valid. The election employee also observed a large number of people who came into the satellite location to vote in person, but they had already applied for an absentee ballot. These people were allowed to vote in person and were not required to return the mailed absentee ballot or sign an affidavit that the voter lost the mailed ballot. Listen, here's the thing. Why aren't you worried about these irregularities? But no, this is a separate question. But it's a separate question, which is, If you are finding these irregularities, if you have an election worker being told to backdate ballots, that's a problem. We're going to pursue all of this. Is it going to be enough? No, it's going to take time. Is it going to be enough? We don't know. Is it going to take time? Yes, it's going to take time. But what we are seeing is deeply alarming. Along with the software situation we had in Antrim County, which we need to get to the bottom of as well. Now we have a whistleblower, and now we have 131 affidavits talking about irregularities and problems that were happening in Detroit. That's just Michigan.
Can you share the name of the poll worker?
You can look at this lawsuit.
Can you share the name of the poll worker?
Mike, can you get them the lawsuit? We'll get that out to you. I don't know if that person's name, it may be a whistleblower, so they may be provided protections.
Do you have any evidence that you can show us today that shows that illegal votes were cast?
Well, I think I just went through that with you. With somebody backdating ballots, that's called illegal. If you are changing the date on a ballot, an election worker, a whistleblower, well, how would we have to subpoena that, and we'll have to get that information, but that's going to be an investigation process. But somebody was told, you need to backdate ballots to make them legal, ballots that were illegal under the law.
How is there this big conspiracy theory against, or conspiracy against, how is there this big conspiracy against red counties and Republican voters with the GOP picked up House seats? How are some Republicans, okay?
I don't think it can, listen, how is it a conspiracy when a whistleblower from the city of Detroit is saying, I was told by my supervisors to lie and backdate ballots? This is somebody protected under the law. There's no conspiracy there. Matt, if you want to go forward.
I can answer at least regarding the lawsuit today in Pennsylvania.
Well, the question
So-
is about the Republican Party picking up seats.
No, but I'm saying, you're saying, you're talking about how the disparate treatment. So for example, in the city of Philadelphia, if you do not provide an inter-secrecy envelope with your ballot as you return it, that is not supposed to count. But what we know is happening in Philadelphia is somehow the city of Philadelphia knew which ballots had inter-secrecy envelopes and did not, and were telling voters ahead of time, hey, you may not have included your inter-secrecy envelope. You need to get in here and vote a provisional ballot and get that fixed. But that was only happening in Philadelphia, but that was not happening in the rest of the state because the state law discourages that. So as Democrats were disproportionately voting by mail, they were disproportionately picking up those added votes in the city of Philadelphia.
Let me say one final thing. There were 682,479 ballots counted in Philadelphia, in Allegheny County, that there were no poll watchers allowed to watch. It's the job of the media to ask the question why, because all we are asking for is truth, transparency, and sunlight here. That is all we are asking for. And sadly, we are asking the questions many of you should.
I just want to read a little bit of this because it makes me giggle. She says to, this is Kaylee McEnany. To the campaign, this election is not over. Far from it. We have only begun the process of obtaining an accurate, honest vote count. We are fighting for the rights of all Americans who want to have faith and confidence, not only in the election, but in the many elections to come. There is only one party in America that opposes voter ID. One party in America that opposes verifying signatures, citizenship, residency, eligibility. There's only one party in America trying to keep observers out of the court, out of the count rooms, and that party, my friends, is the Democratic Party. Amen. You don't take these positions because you want an honest election. Say it, girl. You don't oppose an audit of the vote because you want an accurate count. Yes. You don't oppose our efforts at sunlight and transparency because you have nothing to hide. You take these positions because you are welcoming fraud and you are welcoming illegal voting. Our position is clear. We want to protect the franchise of the American people. We want an honest, accurate, lawful count. We want maximum sunlight. We want maximum transparency. We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be discarded. Unlike our opponents, we have nothing to hide. And I don't think you can disagree with that. The integrity of our election matters. The Constitution of the United States matters. Yes. What we have seen across the country is Democrat officials systemically trying to do an end run around the Constitution to tip the scales of the election in their favor, which, as you guys have been following stimulus news, you've watched people like Nancy Pelosi progressively put things in place to get things the way that they want for this election, not to help us. As Justice Gorsuch wrote in DNC versus Wisconsin State Legislator, our effort to uphold the Constitution is tested by hard times, not easy ones. Last-minute changes to long-standing election rules risk other problems too. inviting confusion and chaos and eroding public confidence in electoral outcomes. Yes. Pennsylvania is just a case study in this. Allow me just to broadly review 3 points that have happened in Pennsylvania. Number 1, in Philadelphia, poll watchers who are legally permitted to be there and observe the vote count process were blocked from observing the count. Our poll watchers were put behind barricades in massive rooms. There were many feet from the counting process. And in fact, when you look at all the tables, many hundreds of feet, in fact, from the tables in the very back. They were completely in the dark, completely unable to oversee the vote count, as was in their legal right. An observer on the scene described it this way. Imagine being on a football field, you're at the 10-yard line and expected to make a call in the end zone on the other side of the field. This is unacceptable. An intermediary court ruled on the side of the campaign, on the side of transparency, and allowing the poll watchers to observe the count. But what did the Democrat Pennsylvania Supreme Court do? They issued an administrative stay, effectively pushing back our poll watchers and denying them the access they deserve to sit and watch the count. Ask yourself this: why are Pennsylvania Democrats hiding? Why can't poll watchers simply observe the count? And I don't know. I feel like I don't have to say much else. I feel like this perfectly sums it up. And then you also had other people that stepped forward, like Matt Morgan, and they're talking about different issues that have happened. And then I also really liked Ronna McDaniel. So make sure and really go over that, because she was going at the media. And for me, it's fun to watch because, as I've said to you guys several times, I can't stand any of these people because I see them doing a fraud and an injustice to the American people when they continue just to lie to us. They are really putting our democracy in danger. And we have too many people in the country that are fine with it because they're going to go along with the fairy tale and the narrative that's been spun to them. So they're completely okay with it. But we have a lot of people like me in this country who aren't okay with it. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. We should all be fighting for our Constitution and for fair elections and democracy and freedom. And that's not because I'm some closet Republican. It's because I'm somebody that cares about this country and cares about the people in this country. Guys, if we can't rely on the elections to be fair, if we can't do that, we don't have a country. And that's a really bad place, because I know a lot of people haven't gone out in the world and been to really bad countries. I've traveled a lot, and we don't want to turn into the other places. Believe me, it is not perfect here. We have a ton of issues to fix. This is coming from somebody who's almost lost their life, being misdiagnosed for 36 years, several times, and had 2 bankruptcies on almost nothing but medical debt. So I get it. This is an unfair place and changes need to happen. But we need to at least try to preserve the last shreds of democracy possible. And the silver lining, as I've said, and I will keep saying, is that this situation is going to bring to light all of this corruption that's been going on for decades and years. Probably hundreds of years when you really look back into it. Okay guys, if you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up, like the video, subscribe, hit notifications so you can be notified what's coming in the pipeline for you and your stimulus money and elections and everything in between. Also guys, leave a comment, let me know what you think, sound off, and please share this content with anybody you think that could benefit from it, that would like this type of thing. I also have tons of stimulus help for people, so I would just love to help as many people as possible, and the more you do these things, the more it helps me. And guys, the more you like, subscribe, comment, notifications, share the content, the more my channel grows, and the more I grow, the more I can give back to you guys, which is exactly what I want to do and what I'm focused on. So for instance, by the way, this is new shirt, so I'm like trying to make it work. I probably just need to put a tank top on under it. So notes for next time. But guys, so I'm giving away $100 gift cards in the video, like I said. Very simple to be able to win. This is all you have to do. Like our video, subscribe, hit notifications, comment, share the content, boom. You're eligible, you're entered. That's all you have to do. Make sure and do it for every video that you see. And guys, the more times you comment and share, the more chances you have to win. Leave 100 comments, you have 100 times more chances to win. Good luck. I announce winners on Monday. Add me on Facebook, Katie's Insight, like the page, join the group Katie's Corner, which is getting changed to Katie's Insight. We're helping with stimulus, we're talking news, politics, business, and the election. So make sure to go there. We have a fun time. I would love to see you there. Okay guys, I'm going to go take a break. I'm gonna go relax, and I'm gonna get ready for tomorrow's videos because I have more coming at you as long as my health can handle. We are going to get this information out because it's important. I think we're gonna look back, and this is gonna be one of the craziest times in our history in the United States in this time period. And I want to make sure that I can get you guys as much accurate information as I possibly can, or at least show you both sides of the situation. Okay, guys, take care, blessings, lots of love. I'll see you soon. Hugs and kisses. Mwah. Bye, guys.